to support crews battling the flames in Laurelton, California. Joining us now is Matthew Cappucci, meteorologist with the Washington Post. Matthew, good evening and thank you for joining us on CTV News Channel. Appreciate your time. So can you tell us what these fire tornadoes look like and where exactly they touch down?
Yeah, so there were 5 fire tornadoes in just 2 hours between 1 p.m. and 3 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time on Saturday. And you have to keep in mind, these are not little fire whirls like you sometimes see in the flames on even a stove or a campfire. These were actual tornadoes made out of fire. And what happened, you had all the smoke go up, an incredible amount of buoyancy thanks to the heat released by the fire. And that took on the characteristics of a supercell thunderstorm, the entire smoke plume starting to rotate. And you had at least 5 tornadoes of fire and smoke drop down, with winds likely between 160 and 200 kilometers per hour.
You know, these images, when we're looking at them, they actually look like as if they're out from a movie. How common are these fire tornadoes?
You know, there's reason to believe they're a little more common than we originally thought, but that said, still extremely rare. We had one back at the car fire in Redding, California back in July 26, 2018, and that one actually killed a firefighter because it moved so unpredictably, and that's part of the reason why the National Weather Service in Reno, Nevada opted to issue the first ever fire tornado warning with this particular instance yesterday. We also had one with the Eiler fire back in 2014 and the Woolsey fire in Malibu back in 2018. They haven't seen down under as well back in 2003. The Canberra, Australia fires produced a fire tornado, but nonetheless, I think this might be the first time we've seen them habitually form with one fire, at least 5 in 2 hours.
Wow, so there is a wildfire, then there is a tornado, and then there is a tornado wildfire. Wildfire, yeah, okay. I'm just getting my terminology in place. Trying to understand from you that how destructive can these be, and do they actually work like a tornado with their speed and the kind of trail of destruction they leave behind?
Yeah, so these things are the worst of both worlds. A, you have the damage from a fire, which in and of itself is horrendous, but then tornadic wind speeds perhaps up to 200 kilometers per hour, which can cause havoc, destruction. The good news is that most people were out of these areas anyway because of the fire, and you have to keep in mind, because these are fire tornadoes, they rely on that heat source for a sense of lift, for that updraft. With ordinary thunderstorms, that updraft is just warm, humid air. In the case of a fire tornado, the pyrocumulonimbus cloud, the parent smoke plume that acts like a thunderstorm, is very dependent on that heat below from the fire. So these things don't move all that far away from the fire. That said, radar imagery, which you may be looking at right now, shows that several of these couplets of rotation may have moved up to 6 kilometers. So there was likely a path within the fire, within the area charred by the fire, that likely saw tornadic winds. And of course, the National Weather Service will be investigating after the fact as well.
Is there a way to tackle them? Like, we know the amount of efforts that go into tackling a wildfire, but where there is a situation like that, a fire tornado, how do you tackle them?
Unfortunately, there's no real way to do so, which is part of the reason why we're at the mercy of the fire when it becomes a weather system of its own. Oftentimes, when you have a big plume of smoke that goes up, it can produce thunder, can produce lightning like it did yesterday in California. You know, I myself was back in a wildfire-induced thunderstorm back in 2018. It was amazing to see in person, and it really is true that sometimes these wildfires produce their own weather, and it becomes much more difficult to forecast them.
Wow, what a wild phenomena this is. Matthew Cappucci, thank you for breaking it down for us. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
And the world's old